Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. This is the podcast where we help you challenge your mindset and discover where you are. Tired of stories about other people's success? We can help you change your life, determine your time freedom point, and join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ideal Investor Show, where we bring you awesome guests to talk about how can we use different value assets to create passive income, reach our time freedom point, and ultimately have the freedom, like Swami and I, to work from and live wherever we want to, because we don't have to worry about where the money comes from. So we have an awesome guest. I'm going to say it only once and then go to the true name. The original name is Gven, but he is Swami Crypto. And Swami, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Axel. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, really awesome. And thanks for making the time. And so exotic location, people know I'm recording this from Spain. You are at an island off the coast of Panama. So this is a really, truly international deal that we're doing. So Swami, tell the audience a little bit, how did you end up getting into crypto, and what is ARC and what does it do?
Yeah, so originally I got into crypto because I was like everybody else. I just wanted more money. And so greed was the factor. And I got in 2017, in June of 2017, and my first crypto that I bought was Litecoin, and within the first few weeks it went up by like 40%, and I was investing in equities and real estate, and I was like, oh my gosh, none of my other assets are moving this fast up. And so I started really diving into like what gave crypto its value, and little by little throughout that year I was able to turn, I think $40,000 that I dollar cost averaged into 250,000. And I said, I got to start teaching this because there is some really, really cool stuff here. And so we started teaching back in January of 2018. And like you mentioned, that's the name of my company is ARC. ARC started then. And unfortunately for us, that was the time when the bear market had just started. And when that happened, it was really, really tough for us because, people kept investing in crypto, but it just kept going down. And so really what we did was we kind of retreated and started really looking at the technology, because the technology hadn't really caught up with the hype. And then in 2020, I went on a sabbatical. I moved to, I was in Bali for 10 days and did a silent retreat out there just to get my mind clear, and then went to Russia. I had stage 2A colon cancer. And so I went to go work with a Russian shaman instead of doing chemotherapy. And while I was out there, I had brought some crypto stuff to really evaluate, because I had started seeing a lot of movement, and that was March of 2020. And what I saw was that there is this new technology called decentralized finance, or you'll hear me refer to it as DeFi, really starting to emerge. And that was when kind of the hype and the technology really caught up with each other. And we just made gobs of money. We helped our students do really, really well during that time. But, nothing lasts forever. And especially something as hot as crypto, there's definitely retracements. And so it's really this slower time in crypto right now has afforded us time to really retreat and figure out some new ways to really enhance for the next bull market that's coming in, and that's coming, in my opinion, sometime next year. So we're really excited, even though it's been a rough couple of years, or year and a half, I should say. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an interesting arc, pun intended in this case, from
right
from where you first started to where we are today. I think, since you are really an educator and a technologist, if I see it correctly, I think it is maybe helpful to start with demystifying a little bit
out of those, I think at the height, we had something like 20,000 different so-called cryptocurrencies. I would probably say 20,000 tokens. I'm always a little allergic with the term currency. Or maybe just say 20,000 cryptos if you want to do it that way. Can you tell us a little bit, where are we now, and what has the consolidation in the last couple of years left us with, basically?
You know, like yeah, I mean, there was definitely, I mean, I would say there's probably more than 20,000 cryptos, and I would agree with you on the token side, because these cryptos, a lot of them are definitely not currencies. They're just pump and dump schemes and or failed businesses. And so you know, my goal, and as I've gotten older and much more mature in this industry, is definitely not to speculate, but to accumulate the really good cryptos. And so, you know, right now, a lot of my holdings are in Ethereum and Bitcoin, and maybe some other cryptocurrencies that have real use case scenarios. And I think that's kind of the stigma that people get about crypto, is they come to crypto expecting that they're gonna, you know, buy Doge and it's gonna go and retire them inside of, you know, 2 months. And that usually doesn't happen, right? And while I've had some very, very good performers, the older that I get, the more I start to see, okay, I don't want to live through the extreme volatilities, and even Bitcoin and Ethereum can be very volatile. So how do we do that? And so we've found new ways so that we can basically do peer-to-peer loans and peer-to-peer trading. And every time we do that, we basically act as like an institution, except instead of having these big companies, it's just you, me, the person in India, the person in Peru, and you can come in with any amount of money to do that and participate and earn passive income using these tools. And so that's really where I'm more focused on, as opposed to like these other, like you said, 20,000 in some tokens, or 30,000, or God knows how many, and NFTs. You got to put NFTs on there now too, because there's an unlimited amount of NFTs that are just useless, you know. So for
I
me,
hear you. I would hope that you, Swami, and I can agree for our conversation today. We leave NFTs out for now. I would like to ask you something that has really bugged me, and I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have you on the show to ask you this. As somebody who is helping through mentorship and relationships and stuff like that, other people to build value-based portfolios in real estate and gold coins, silver coins. I'm also, similar to you, a proponent of Bitcoin, still trying to really make up my mind if the I have Ethereum, full disclosure, but this whole contract thing, if that is ultimately really the value, the similar asset value that I can see with Bitcoin, I'm not sure, but you know, if in doubt, then at least be part of the game, so to speak, I would say. But
right.
what I want to ask you from a really basic, fundamental, from my perspective, my use of words, point of view is, if you look at the investing world, or you could call it the centralized finance world versus the DeFi world, I really have the distinct impression that between like 2012, 14, whenever you want to really say that crypto started to have its emergence, until now, with great sadness, in my view, we're seeing the same thing that we have seen in other parts of the financial industry, and that is that the public has not been introduced to something new and cool like Bitcoin or any of the other, even if we don't want to dive into the other 20,000. But even if you say Bitcoin and Ethereum, with even the slightest little bit to say, let us explain to you guys out there that there is something new, how it works, why it has merit, and how you can participate. Even to the point, in my view, to call it currency was purely because somebody said, well, fundamentally, you can imagine that you can pay stuff with it. right? And
Yeah.
so
And it,
what's, I mean, and especially I'm asking you because ARC is, in my view, from what I studied, at least to a large extent, educating people. What happened? Why did crypto and the whole blockchain stuff and DeFi again fail to really get at least a foundation of understanding before we talk about the actual assets?
yeah, I think that you can sum it up to one word, and that's greed. You know, it's just in our nature, right? And the way that crypto moves, it moves so quickly, right? It trades 24/7 all over the world. There is no break, right? So our boom and bust are very, very violent, we should say. And so what ends up happening is, you know, and we see this in Fibonacci, we see this in the destruction of even nature, right? Where you have things, they retrace and then they come back wildly. And that's really what's happened with crypto. It was just a lot of liquidity was injected because the Fed was printing a lot of free money, a lot of cheap money. And so people were doing that. And then as soon as they started hiking interest rates, well, that took, you know, all the oxygen out of the room. And so, but while that was going on, you know, the party was great. More money kept going in and in and in, obviously, which for any speculative investment is a necessary. You need more liquidity. And so that's, in my opinion, that's really what happened. But let me tell you what's happening now. You know, when we have these bear markets, it's really the time for things to start building. And again, I like using nature as the example because, like, last year I lived in the middle of the jungle and saw the you know, the volcanoes and what destruction they caused, but then they caused all this like massive flourishing of an ecosystem. And so I liken it to that, as to kind of like a volcano explosion. We had this massive eruption, it killed everything around, but there is small things that survived, and the ones that did now are starting to really flourish. And once we start to see kind of a crypto spring, which is exactly what happened last time, things are going to get that much progressively better. And, you know, one of the things that we're working on is real world assets on the blockchain. So we just actually launched our first tokenized real estate project. And the technology is right there, and the creativity of the finance is all there. No Ponzi scheme, no, you know, scam. It is literally backed by a real world asset. And now we're able to borrow and lend against those properties right there on the blockchain. So there's a lot of growing up that's gone on with crypto, but you know, it's very new. DeFi still is only what, 3 years old. So this is something that's very, very new. But we believe that it's definitely being built and growing. So
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the educational aspect is just something that I find sad in a sense, because there was a great opportunity there. And I hear you when you say, okay, people were greedy, but I was hoping that, you know, the greed are the people who are, in my opinion, either immature or risk averse, right? So
yeah,
I would say the risk averse are those who can say, okay, this sounds interesting. Somebody is telling me that they just made, like you said, you know, like 40% in a month. If I calculate that, that's 480% a year, right? So I have enough money. I just dump 100K, and if it becomes 4 million, great. And if it disappeared, I don't care. That would be for me the risk averse. And the other ones are just mature. It's kind of like shiny object syndrome, where somebody came up with something new. I don't know what I'm doing. I just been told I need to throw it in this exchange and let it sit there, and I can learn how to trade and get a red light and a green light, and suddenly I'm making money, right? So I get that part. I'm just saying I'm a little sad because I find some of what we're seeing right now, and you mentioned that in the things that you're interested in, right? Like, in my view, being somewhat educated, definitely mature, but by no means anywhere close to an expert like you are when it comes to crypto. When I see what the regulator is trying to do right now and how they're fumbling around, like between, okay, we approve something, then we don't know if we should have approved it, then we sue the companies. when they say, hold on, you gave us approval, we applied, you gave us approval, now you're suing us because we're doing something based on your, right? To any person, if you were to take this into any other business, you would say that regulator needs to be kicked out by whoever is the authority for that regulator, right? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, I think what is kind of almost a brilliant thing is to say, let the community say, how can we get around it? Who is more powerful than the regulator? And it comes to BlackRock.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, in a
and
way,
that,
when I think about it, my little story is, okay, the regulator is crazy, old people who have no clue what they're talking about and trying to rectify mistakes they may have made. And then there's BlackRock, and that balance
right.
everything, you
No,
know.
and that's the truth, and that's kind of the cool thing. And like you said, I mean, last year and this year was very, very depressing when you see this, suppression going on. And I think at the end of the day, it was, a power play for control on behalf of the government, because, crypto and crypto does have a way to basically your own bank, right? So you can skip out on a lot of things. I don't, right? But there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And in my opinion, it's better to try to find out how you can work with these companies, because crypto's not going anywhere. It's just getting better and better. I mean, there's some projects right now that I use every single day that I don't even need a bank. I have, one bank account, and that basically is to onboard cash from sales of my business. But outside of that, I really don't need a bank account. And so, I'm sure you know this, but by now PayPal's coming out with their own stable coin. They're going to be offering payments real time at cash registers now, and be able to transfer money instead of using Swift, which kind of takes out XRP, in my opinion, in the flash of an eye. When I was over there, my girlfriend at the time, but now wife, she I sent some money in Russia from PayPal America to PayPal Russia, and it still took 5 days, right? And it was just absolutely horrible. Where now with this new stable coin, you're able to transfer it in the flash of an eye. Now, I've been used to that for the last 6 years, because I've been in crypto, I've been in DeFi, but a lot of people haven't. And so, like, sometimes I talk about this, and I'll talk to like some TradFi people, and they're just like, well, like, this is just a scam. And I'm like, man, there's really people who still think crypto's a scam. Like, they're obviously not using it like me and my students. And that to me is the most important. But regulation is definitely, let me say this, Axel. I'm actually working on a white paper where I met with a gentleman by the name of Armstrong Williams. I was on his show on CBS in the United States, and he's very close with the Speaker of the House. And he asked me, he's all, hey, is there any way you could put something together in regards to like real regulation? And at the end of the day, using smart contracts, Axel, we can literally put all the laws on the front end to where no Ponzi scheme, no bad actor could really get on to the blockchain using smart contracts. But what would that do? It would eliminate the SEC. It would eliminate the CFTC almost overnight. I mean, obviously not all of them, but you can literally do that now. And I think that's what they're most afraid of, is their jobs are now threatened, right? So there's a lot that you can do on the front end using smart contracts, and they're doing it in DeFi. The thing is, they don't talk about those projects. They only talk about the bad ones, so that they can get everybody up in arms and see this is only being used by criminals and all this stuff, which is totally a farce. So now it's just educating people. That's why I've dedicated my life to it. And slowly but surely, people are coming on board, and they're starting to see the good from the bad. We teach people day one how to avoid scams, right? How to avoid getting hacked, how to make sure you have your keys saved correctly, how to use a hard wallet instead of a soft wallet. And these are all things that I think are super, super pertinent, but it does have to become a little bit easier. And this is coming from me, who's like 100% in, but it's just like the internet. you know, at the beginning when you used to do a Google search, I'm sure you remember this, you had to put all these quotes and, you know, have it really, really laid out right. And it was very hard to do a search. Now you got Chat GPT, it'll do a whole report for you, you know? So
Yeah,
the
that's
thing,
true. Yeah, I mean, the thing for me, and that goes back to my original question about the educational component, right? When there was no internet, no calculator on your phone, or, you know, like when I went to school, we had them as little kind of hand calculators, right? And for crypto, I really believe that there could have been way more trust these days already if in the context of DeFi, we would have been better at educating people that we making a ledger that is unequivocal, unchangeable, basically instant, and it locks in as if you carved it in stone, and 2,000 years later, somebody finds the cave and finds the cave carving and can say, oh yeah, Swarmy and Axel exchanged 1 Bitcoin, right? Like,
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
And I believe that this whole, you know, I mean, the social media world and all this other stuff plays a role, but the fundamental thing to say, we came up with something where there is unequivocally no doubt that when two sides of a coin, to stay within that analogy, do business
right,
with each other, then it is an unequivocal, irrevocable, irreplaceable, and always correct ledger of both sides. And it is
right.
instantaneous. And that's the real, in my opinion, besides all the other stuff around it, that's the real advancement, really, the whole DeFi and blockchain technology and the hedging and that the stuff that is associated with it. Then on that, you have the contracts and you have the names of the coins and the way, you know, whether you have no control like in Bitcoin or you have at least a team that controls, you know, forking and other stuff like that. So that, I think, is really a thing where I want to congratulate and thank you, because you're really doing something important for humanity, that the community, in my opinion, missed a great opportunity, right? I don't think it was intentional, but it was a great opportunity when there is something new and you want to develop trust, that in this ramp up phase, somewhere between 2008 and 2020, with all the ups and downs and the valuations, to say we want to at least get to the point where the masses understand why this works the way it does and why it is worth the trust. And I think we're still in that phase. So I'm kind of curious, in your opinion, since you're so close to it, your business is all about it. Is it just, you know, the next Bitcoin halving in April next year that will get the new bull run running and then everybody is happy again? Or what does it really take to take it from this kind of weird state that it's in to something mainstream, trusted, accepted? Not maybe by everybody, but at least enough to go beyond critical mass.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of things happen in those 4-year cycles, right? You've got the rise and fall of DeFi, and now I'm saying like the weeding out of the bad DeFi protocols, right? But now we're starting to see a lot, you know, more things emerging, and I think DeFi is just going to get much stronger. But also one of the things that I think is going to happen, and it's going to start happening next year, and we're seeing already kind of like a propaganda, like you said, approach from BlackRock and Fidelity and all these guys basically coming out and being like, yeah, Bitcoin and DeFi is great, but you're going to start to see a lot more real world assets come onto the blockchain. And this is why we're focused on real estate, because it is just the most natural progression for it. But you know, you can do things, you know, if you have a wine business, you can tokenize anything and raise money using securities tokens. And I think that's really going to be the real next boom, because it's time for crypto to grow up. And I think it really is growing up. But, you know, you look at through history, you know, take a look at the Medici, right? The Medicis are almost the ones that basically created like the note that we use, you know, well, not anymore. We use digital dollars, right? But for the longest time, we used cash, right? And that note, the Medici were able to certify, they were so trusted, like you said, that people were like, hey, that piece of paper is actually worth more than the assets that it's backing. And that's kind of where a lot of the speculation has come in, right? Back then when they were doing this in the 1600s. But now we're able to transfer value much quicker. right? And anytime the speed of money becomes faster, there's more potential for gains. And we've seen that in our stock markets. And in my opinion, probably the last untapped business in terms of speed and illiquidity is real estate. And so we believe that, you know, sometime here in the near future, and I'm not talking about REITs, because REITs are a totally different thing. I'm talking.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we are actually, just so our audience and our idea wealth for our community, we are using for something we call cash flow parking. We're using a platform called Lofty AI, and I would be interested to find out what ARC has and how it's maybe different, which is also tokenized real estate. The one thing that I would wish, if I had a wish, especially since we're both doing this from international locations, is that the tokenized real estate can be international and has some additional enhancements, you know, like, because there are locations in the world that have advantages where, you know, if it were not just to own the token, but maybe certain rights associated with it, where you can say, okay, there's plenty of real estate in Panama, I buy tokens, you know, as part of the real estate, but I can also associate with the tokens, get the right of use for a week, like, not really, I don't want to say timeshare, but in a way similar to it, to say, okay, it's not just a property that is commercially managed, but the owners, meaning the token holders, have a small, tiny use case associated with it internationally. For me, I would start advising our community to say, okay, let's do that in desirable location, because nobody can predict when the brown stuff is hitting the fan and we need to go somewhere, right? Then where do you have places to go where you can say, I have something in hand, like, which is hopefully
Right.
possible to be in your hard wallet, to say, I can prove that I have access to this and I'm a co-owner, and I can at least spend some time here to sort my stuff out, right? And if you have enough of those around the world, that will definitely enhance security for people. Because I'm personally, I mean, I want to ask you this, because in one of the points you said we can touch on is a little bit of where are we in the world right now, going from, you know, single polar to multipolar, if you ask me. But I'm curious, you know, how volatile are things going to get before we get through this geopolitical winter? I mean, you and I seem to have a hidden discussion about the fourth turning a little bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's coincidental. We actually just had a mastermind last week. That's why I'm here on this island right now. And the mastermind, part of it, we talked about the fourth turning and, you know, the four seasons. And, you know, if you take a look at a lot of these economists, man, I'm blanking on the one who wrote the fourth turning. What was his name again? Anyways, so basically he's saying that we're now starting to get out of the winter and going into the spring, which is really cool. But there's still maybe kind of one last hurrah before that happens. And so, like, look, here's the bottom line. Do I think that, like, all of a sudden one day everybody's going to start using crypto just like that? No, I don't think so. But like you said, I think we're in for a multipolar world. You know, you have the BRICS nations coming out, you know, they're talking about backing their programmable money. I don't even want to call it a cryptocurrency, programmable money, by gold. And I think they, like, loosely even used that term, right? It wasn't like backed it. They were like, oh, we're going to have it there just in case, or something like that. And then you have the dollar, which is obviously losing market share, but then you have cryptocurrencies. And in my opinion, all of these sectors are going to compete for everybody's business. And that's where I think, you know, crypto really does fit in the part of this equation. People are just like, hey, I don't want to participate in that system. They can, you know, maybe move to Panama or Costa Rica or the country of Georgia, and say, hey, I'd rather deal with crypto than deal with, you know, some CBDC that the government can basically cancel me at any time because, you know, I'm against or for vaccines, I'm against or for Trump, I'm against or for Biden. And I think that's where I think that that a lot of people are just like, and not all of them, because some people like that, want that, right? But there's a lot of people who don't want that, and they'd rather be a little bit more free, and don't want to have, you know, their country cancel them and potentially lose all their money, like the former prime minister of England just had, where they closed his bank account, you know. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think,
To clarify this, so you were basically starting to say, where are we going to be, like maybe by the end of next year? So with the halving coming next spring and so forth, what do you think?
well, man, we've got some just unprecedented things going on right now, and
Yeah,
especially in the US,
definitely. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, like nothing really looks good, from bonds to the stock market. And, you know, if you take a look at what the stock market and US real estate market is, it's a derivative of the dollar, right? And it's where did China invest all of their money over the last whatever 30 years? It was in the US. But now they're starting to retrace and go, hey, maybe this isn't the place we want to, you know, put our assets in. And you've seen that by, you know, China selling off. I think they've sold off like $300 billion
Yeah.
worth of T-bills, something like that. I was just watching, or more, maybe even 500 billion, half a trillion. And they were holding on to about 1 point some trillion dollars in T-bills. So the debt that they're starting to get rid of now is a little alarming. So we have like some really, really crazy stuff. In my opinion, where are people going to go? Well, I mean, crypto is definitely a solution. I don't think it's going to be everybody's going to just pile into crypto, right? But I think that the writing's on the wall. You're seeing like, I think I did the math in a presentation the other day. It's like $44 trillion worth of these companies, you know, between BlackRock and Fidelity and Charles Schwab and JP Morgan Chase, are getting into DeFi. And they're not doing it because they're dummies. You know, these guys are way higher up than you and me, and they know a
Right.
lot more than both of us, right? And so I just kind of read into that and go, man, the writing's on the wall. And when does this stuff usually turn in crypto? And it's usually during the Bitcoin halving. And so, you know, I think this time next year, yeah, we're going to see some action. And it could be, you know, people going like, man, why do I want to invest in, you know, cash or a bond or a T-bill when these guys just keep printing more and more money, and I'm getting, you know, blown away by inflation? And who's to say that China and Russia are not? Come on, really? Give me a break, right? And on top of it, now it's a cryptocurrency. They can hit a stroke in case they don't like something that I'm doing, and bye-bye, there goes my money, right? And so, or you jaywalk and they didn't like it, you know, boom, zapped out of your bank account. And so I think that crypto is really the natural progression of that. And, you know, we can do that now. Again, it just doesn't have to be Bitcoin, Ethereum, or the 20,000 other coins you were talking about. It can also be now real estate, your real estate coins, right? And you can borrow against them. You can do all sorts of really, really creative stuff. And so the technology, in my opinion, way surpasses TradFi. TradFi, in my opinion, in 10 years is done. It's not going to look anything what it looks like now, just like the internet, right? Like you're in the age genre where you and I used to read, you know, encyclopedias. I'm 43 years old, by the way. So I'm like you, man. I didn't have the internet to do research. I didn't use a calculator. I had to do everything hard math, you know? And so maybe that's why I'm good at calculating percentages, but
Yeah.
now it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
there are some good things that we didn't have all the toys. I totally agree with that. I mean,
yeah,
part of the reason that I said I hope that there's at least an announcement about the BRICS trade currency is because if it's commodity based, hopefully gold and maybe some other stuff, that will automatically mean that gold will become recognized as more rare if it really is backing stuff, not because of the starting point, but where it will have to grow, especially for Western countries. And I've always felt that at least for the top cryptos like Bitcoin, obviously, but also Ethereum and a few others, if the gold price is going up, then they typically kind of walk along with it, which is a good thing in that sense. And the one thing, even though I'm always bashing the lack of education, I think the one thing that was successful is to say, okay, Bitcoin is basically digital gold. And if people put that into their mind, you know, for all the trading and speed and stuff that you mentioned, then I think it would be a good thing. So I think we touched on quite a few things, and I hope it came across to our audience that you are not only rightfully called Swami Crypto, but also that you're really providing awesome education. So if people say, well, I want to learn more, I want to be prepared, so that maybe a little bit before next spring, I'm already kind of set up, what do they do? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, ARCrypto.io. And there's, you know, a lot of information on how to get a hold of us there if you're interested in learning DeFi, and including, and by the way, Axel, we teach people even how to buy digital gold, like real digital gold. That's cryptocurrencies by Paxos, which is a very reputable company. They're like kind of the new Medici for me, right? They're all their gold is on the blockchain, so you're able to really see how much they have fully audited. So there's lots of really cool things there. You can even leverage trade it, for heaven's sake, now on the blockchain, which is really cool. But you can also find me on YouTube and Instagram at Wealth Renegade. That's all one word, at Wealth Renegade. And that's definitely where you can get in touch with me. And, you know, again, if people are interested in learning, I think you put a very strong emphasis on education. I completely agree with it. I'm self-taught. I had to go to the University of Hard Knocks with crypto because it's so darn new, right? But we've got probably over 10 coaches now, and a company of about 30 people. So I'm not just a one-man band here. We've got some real backing with our coaches and some great innovation coming up that I think people are going to be really excited about. So, but right now, and you know this too, is really the time to be investing, you know, but when do people get in? When Bitcoin's at 67, you know, and that's when I sell the most amount of classes because everybody's just, you know, hearing it all over the news. But you and I both know that right now is the time to be learning, and right now is the time to be stacking, because, you know, once this thing does happen, and I think it's definitely going to, you know, sometime next year, they're going to be very happy that they did. So
yeah, absolutely. That's awesome, Swami. You just reminded me on a little episode, like I had been in touch, when was that? Must have been sometime last year, maybe a little bit, may have been end of 21. Anyways, in touch with some people where we had regular calls. And so before the calls, there was always a little bit of chit chat. So the one guy asked me, okay, what you are into? And I'm saying, yeah, I'm here on Zoom with you, but on my other monitor, I'm monitoring Bitcoin. And he's like, why are you doing that? That thing is going down, down, down. I'm saying, yeah, exactly. I have my limit buys and I'm hoping that, you know, and 1 week later we meet. He said, so how is your Bitcoin doing? I said, oh, I got some at 25,000. And then a week later, he said, well, how is your Bitcoin doing? I got my next one at 23. Like, I think the lowest I got was 18 or so. And he like,
oh, wow.
I listen to like these little nuggets where somebody says when everybody is down, you want to get in, and when everybody is awake, you want to get out, right? So it's sometimes really simple like that. But he could completely not understand that I had buy limit trades basically sitting there and waiting literally for it to come down further. So anyway, Swami, 2 last questions before we close. The first one is, if you could meet anybody, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. I was not waiting for that one, but I would, you know, honestly, I would probably say like Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is an investor that I'm just really, really aligned with. I really like what he talks about. I just read his book for a second time, and I just think he's an amazing investor, and he's real. You know, it's not always winning, and I think that's investing. You know, you have to understand that you're not always going to win. Sometimes things just don't pan out, and that's happened to me, you know, and I take those as lessons, and then I become a smarter investor. So Ray Dalio really hits on that, and makes me feel a lot comfortable about my mess ups.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, there is a book out called The New World Order that came out with like a year ago. It's a very good book, highly recommended, like you said, Swami.
Yeah.
By the way, for you,
Yep.
if you want to kind of expand on that, there is another book by a Singapore guy called Has China Won? I highly recommend that if you like Ray Dalio's book. Last question, I asked that for everybody. If you had a time machine, where would you go and why?
Oh man, if I had a time machine, I would definitely go 100 years into the future.
Okay.
And the reason is because I want to see what we do. You know, I want to see what we do, and I'm an optimist when it comes to our future, and I really think we're going to do some great things, and we're going to be better off. I think we just got to get these governments that are neurotic and greedy with knowing everything about everybody off of our backs, and figure out a way where we can keep people safe, but at the same time not be so intrusive in their business. And I used to be a Democrat. I'm not either one now, because I always say left wing, right wing, same bird. But at the end of the day,
exactly. That's a good one. I'm gonna steal that. No, actually, I mean, I could imagine that if you do that 100 years from now, you could find like the Swami introducing Mars coin.
Yeah, we've already talked about our own coin. I don't want to talk about our own coin. I just want to talk about the ones that are actually doing something. But yeah, I think that 100 years from now, we're going to be better off. But it's really interesting to see like where we're going to be. I think, medicine and technology is kind of going to blend with spirituality and all that stuff. And so I think there's a lot of really, really cool stuff coming up in the future. So that's where I would go.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. And I mean, when you come back from that trip, I want to know if we really have that city on Mars or not.
Yeah, right. Nice.
All right, cool.
Nice.
Well, Swami Crypto, it was a wonderful pleasure to have you. Thank you for spending an hour's worth of time with us. And like you said, we put the links and for your social and all the other stuff in the show notes so people can find it. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Axel.